We're live back with you tonight on In Focus, and thanks for staying on. ANC Youth League pushing for cadre deployment on the party's national and provincial deployment list. It wants young leaders to take up roles, particularly in the economic cluster, despite the party's latest legal bid not to share cadre deployment records with the Democratic Alliance. The League's Secretary General, Mntuwoxolo Ngudle, is with us in the studio to shed more light on their position. Good to have you, and thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having us, Loli.
Let's talk firstly about your position, right, on the state of public service right now. And do you recognize the challenges that are being faced by public service right now? Maybe to an extent, others might even say public service is in disarray and public service is not effective in delivering to the people.
No, look, of course we accept that there are some of the challenges in the public service. Of course, these relate to a number of other challenges, even in the private sector. There is a very wrong misperception or misconception around what should constitute the public service. Who are the people that should be in the public service, particularly public administration? Yeah. And I mean, the ANC Youth League, the ANC has been very clear that let's professionalize the public service. Let's ensure that we have capable, administration. Now, the bureaucracy of the state or of government has to be professionalized. It has to be on the basis of national legislation, because the Constitution, that's what it argues. Yeah. It argues for a professionalized, ethical administration. Yeah. And the ANC has never deviated from that, even through its deployment policy.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. We're talking about people who are not here. People are here, right? It's people who ensure that capable people are appointed.
Definitely.
Right? Now, when we hear reports, not even from oppositions, reports that are done by departments that are run by the ANC, right? Department of Water and Sanitation, saying an administrator or person holding a position in administration doesn't have the qualifications.
That is nothing
to run that department, and therefore people end up having water that does not pass the blue drop or the green drop. In fact, it's water that's contaminated, and it's unconstitutional, that thing.
Look, Tabo, that has nothing to do with the ANC. Yeah. Public administration must follow national legislation. That's the argument the ANC has been making. And those that are appointed wrongly, without the necessary capabilities or qualifications for certain jobs, those must be shown the door. That has been a very clear stance of the ANC, the ANC Youth League. We are calling for a capable administration that is able to execute loyally, yes, by the way, the policies of the governing party of the day. And that's what the Constitution calls for.
Why would you oppose a bill that says, well, let's make that a criminal offense? If you are going to interfere with public appointments, which you're saying it's a national policy. If you're going to interfere with that national policy and you're going to bring in your friends who don't have matric to be CFOs, who then will use billions and billions of rands getting consultants, then it must be criminalized and you must be taken to jail.
Look, there are many ways. You must know this country has got its own history. Yeah. And the history of the development, not just of the public service, but of the people of this country. And now, when you are arguing for a bill of that particular nature, it must be consistent. I mean, put in legislation that is going to be consistent in terms of its application. For example, there's been people that have been employed, under apartheid, for example, who have been holding particular positions, in terms of public administration. Over years, they've accumulated experience. Now I'm talking about people employed under apartheid. They've accumulated particular experiences and so on. Now, your first point, you can't say those people must be fired. Talk about reskilling and upskilling about those people, of those particular people at a particular given, give them a reasonable time for them to be upskilled and reskilled, for them to be able to fit the requirements of the day. Yeah. And that's the argument that the ANC and the ANC Youth League is making around the existing, public administrators.
How long would that be? I mean, you have challenges now. You have a report, for example, from the South African Human Rights Commission. I was speaking to Mr. Duma yesterday about that, where they're saying there are people who are charged with dereliction of duty, seriously, for not being able to give people water, adequate water supply, right? And you are saying, well, give those people time, let them stay there, reskill them.
No.
How long?
No.
You have a challenge now. You must remove those people, put people who are capable, or fix pipes, and water must flow and go to the people.
No. You are making a very wrong argument. Actually, our argument is not about dereliction of duty. Yeah. That's a different ball game altogether. Now, dereliction of duty, it means you are not doing your judicial duties. Yeah. It means you have left your post. Yeah. That's a different argument altogether. You see, with capability. Yeah. Capability is something else,
Part of the reason why they're derelicting their duties is because they lack capacity.
No, it's not true.
It's true. That's what the South African Human Rights Commission found.
No, I'm saying that argument would be flawed against the capabilities in the public service. By the way, most capable, administrators are both in the public and private sector. Some have moved from the public sector to the private sector. Yeah. Very capable, they are doing very well, performing very high than those that would have been assumed to be performing very high in the private sector. Yeah. Now, the argument is, for those that have been in the administration for some time, let's talk about reasonable time. Let's have a framework that talks about reasonable time of reskilling and upskilling them. And then you can do restructuring on the basis of those that are unskillable or reskillable or upskillable. You see, then you can talk about how to create exit strategies for new entrants into the public service. And that's why the Youth League is arguing that those that are untrainable, within exit ages, within public service, they must make way. We must create exit strategies for them so that young people who have got these necessary required skills can come into the public service for purposes of ensuring that services are delivered and development is advanced in the country. So
the view that says, well, you are supporting this because you have vested interest in the sense that you yourselves want to benefit from cadre deployment on the other end because you want to put a list of your own people to come in.
Let me tell you, Thabo, the ANC, I'm saying, in its own cadre deployment policy, very clear about meritocracy, very clear about who is going to be deployed where on the basis of what qualifications, and very clear about experience, among other things, in its own cadre deployment. So there is nowhere the way cadre deployment argues for mediocrity, which is the whole narrative that is being peddled by, doomsayers and those that are reactionary forces against the governing party of the day. I mean, the Constitution is clear. Those that must be in the administration, of the developmental state must be loyal to the policies of the government of the day. You can't say we must employ a person who believes in DA policies, to advance an agenda of transformation in this country. We'll never agree to that.
If your challenge is loyalty to ANC policy, right?
To the government of the day.
To the government of the day. And it's not wishy-washy ways of appointing people. Why aren't you clear with the Democratic Alliance on your minutes?
Well, very clear.
These are the minutes.
No.
Release the report of the minutes. These are the minutes. We appoint people on meritocracy. Why go to the highest court in the land to say, no, we don't want you to see these records?
No. The DA is trying to co-govern with the ANC when it has no majority support to do that. This country is governed on the basis of the will of the people. And our deployment policy and our deployment processes are very legitimate and very presumes in terms of how they deal with the issues of deployment. We've been very clear. The mayors that have been deployed, look at local government space. The mayors that have been deployed, it's people with certain qualifications. We've set those standards, not the DA. Now the DA can try to co-govern with us. Why must we share minutes of our processes with them?
Yeah.
We're not co-governing with the DA. They are the opposition.
It's the same argument that the ANC brings with the Chief Justice, where the Chief Justice says, no, this particular policy was problematic, and at the heart of state capture, you're saying, well, the Chief Justice can't want to co-govern with the ANC.
No, true. That's an overreach. You see, when you try, we've been very clear, and this is from the separation, the doctrine of separation of powers. We can't have now a judicial dictatorship in this country. We've never, advanced that particular model of, governance. We've advanced a model of governance of the doctrine of separation of powers. The courts must do their business of interpreting the law.
Right.
That's what they must do. They must not want to govern now with us as the governing party.
Let's take a break, and we'll continue in a moment, and we'll delve a little bit further about members of government doing business with the state. Mntuwoxolo Ngudle, Secretary General of the ANC Youth League, staying with us. You can weigh in also tonight on this conversation, 072-110-5584. We'll continue with our conversation. ANC Youth League Secretary General Mntuwoxolo Ngudle joins us in the studio, and you are, of course, part of the conversations as well tonight, 072-110-5584. Send us a message on X at Newzroom 405. I want to go back and circle a little bit to this question of you going to, when I say you, I'm saying your mother party, ANC, saying we will go to the highest court in the land to defend this thing of releasing the records of the cadre deployment committee meetings. And I'm saying, why do you believe that is a political strategy on the part of the DA? And if it is a political strategy, because you believe, in fact, many of the ANC officials that I've spoken to, they believe that all parties, in fact, actually have some kind of cadre deployment policy, even though they might not call it that, in terms of deploying particular people to strategic positions. Why don't you ask for their minutes?
Definitely. The DA does not have, a formal framework of how they deploy people into either public administration or into political deployments. Why must they want our own minutes as though we're co-governing with them? If it was the SACP or COSATU that was requesting the minutes, because this is an ANC-led alliance. Now, we're not leading with the DA. Why do they want our minutes when they can't provide their own? You see, that's the argument the ANC has been making. Why does the DA want our own records? These are our own internal processes, and on our internal processes, we've been very clear. Our deployment policy is public document, very clear about meritocracy, very clear about how we deploy and for the transformation of this country.
You seem to have not convinced the courts, though, because the courts keep saying you must release those documents.
No, the courts, we then say they must come with a logical argument themselves. That's why we were appealing to the Constitutional Court to say, what is the logical, who in the multi-party system has provided their own deployment policy and records in terms of their internal processes? Who? None of them. But the ANC is asked things that are not done by other parties. Anyway, the DA must release how they are deploying into their positions of influence. The only issue that South Africans must understand is that the ANC is following the Constitution, Chapter 10 of the Constitution of Public Administration. That's what the ANC is following. Anyone who must be in the bureaucracy must be loyal to the policies of the government of the day. And that's what the ANC has been trying to do. And you see, you can't be in a transformation agenda and deploy people who are reactionary.
Right.
You see? And say they must advance. There were administrators under apartheid.
Yes.
Qualified. Advancing a totally regressive and reactionary policies. And those policies were advanced by government. Capable people with qualifications. Now the ANC argues for qualifications, but loyalty also to the transformation agenda of this country, both in public and private sectors of the country.
So here's a bill that says, well, let's formalize these things. Let's put them in the open, as you're saying. Now you can go to Chapter 10, but let's formalize. Let's have a bill. One I've already mentioned this, makes it a criminal offense to interfere in the public appointment process. But two, that prohibits politicians from working in civil service. Three, that prohibits those who are in government from doing business with the state. Now, that's a position of the ANC. The ANC has said so many times to say those who are in government must not do business with the state and they must be audited and so on and so forth. So the reason of refusing this bill does not make sense. Because some of these things are things that you yourself as the ANC have been calling for.
What is the meaning of saying there must be no interference? What is that? What is the meaning of that? Whose interference? Who must interfere? I mean, I've just laid it to you bare that in order for anyone to be appointed into any administrative position in South Africa, there are certain regulated standards that are put in there through the national legislation. Right. Now, so
there must be. So you're saying there must be interference? Because this part of the
no.
I'm hearing that the state capture to say the boards, for example, were told no, appoint this one.
No.
And processes would have been done, interviews would have been done. A particular candidate would have scored maybe better in the interview than the other, but politicians would give an instruction to say no, appoint that one.
Where is that? Where is evidence?
No.
Where is evidence?
We can't. Commission of Inquiry into State Captors everywhere.
No. That's the point. Yeah. Why would you think that a board that conducts interviews, let's say interviews were conducted, and the person with higher scores can never be left out? It has never happened. But the argument is that a DA, because it has got interest on who must be in certain boards. Now, they say, no, particular candidate performed better than the others, but the people who were in the panel favored an ANC person. That's a flawed argument. You know, no people that were ever appointed in the boards where the ANC is governing that were not interviewed. So in the interview, you are also tested whether you understand what are the policies of the government of the day. You should be able to present yourself. It's not about just your qualification. Of course, qualification is number one, but also, are you understanding the transformative policies of the government of the day? If you don't qualify to be part of the administration that is supposed to be advancing transformation. We can't be, dilly-dallying about that.
What's the ANC Youth League's view on officials who are in government, working for government, earning salaries, and then doing business with the state?
Very clear. This is an ANC policy. I mean, the ANC Youth League is very supportive of that. You can't be at the service of the people, but also wanting to do business with the state. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's clear conflict of interest in that. When you are a public administrator, that's why we argue for decent pay and decent jobs, for those that are in the public service, so that you don't have brain drain in the public service. People rather leave to the public sector. We say equal work for equal pay in the public and private sector, so that you can be able to maintain skills, talent, and the necessary, capable administrators in the public service. That's our argument. And if you are well paid for the job you are doing, your intellectual labor power is paid. Why must you then venture for economic opportunities? If you want to go that route, resign as a public administrator, go and venture into economic opportunities. You are not stopped. I mean, this country is opened for those particular policies.
Secretary, your position, then you're saying cadre deployment must be used, and you're saying in this instant it must also be used to benefit the ANC Youth League in the sense that meritocracy must be applied here, where young people who are qualified to be administrators must be put into those positions.
Definitely. It must be used for purposes of ensuring that those that are deployed in administration. Remember, in the statecraft theory, where you have to now, build a state, you choose which kind of the state you want to build. If, like the ANC has declared itself that it wants to build a capable developmental state, the ANC is very clear about the capacity of the bureaucracy, the technical capacity of the bureaucracy, and the ideational capacity of the political leadership. That ideational capacity does not just come on the basis that you have got a Bachelor of Arts It comes with over years of experience with, of course, the qualification that gives you the necessary technical capability to be able to discharge your own duties. I mean, the ANC is very clear about that. That's the meritocracy we're talking about. We're not saying people who are mediocre, who do not qualify, must be given public administration responsibilities. That's not the argument. But the argument is that those that are in government must be people loyal to the government of the day. And the government of the day is the ANC. And we can't be, hiding around that particular position. The DA, if it wants to govern this country, it must contest us in elections and govern. Then the administration will be loyal to those right-wing policies that the DA is advancing to preserve white wealth, white privilege, and white power in this country. And that's what we're seeking to transform with this bureaucracy. But we're saying it must be capable, but it must have the necessary qualifications.
Mntuwoxolo, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on. Secretary General of the ANC Youth League, Mntuwoxolo Ngudle. I'll be back with your headlines at top of the hour. Stay with us.